Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us here on After GMS live on the WFMY News 2 Facebook page. We like to do this every morning, every weekday morning at 7:45. Already see our regulars joining, and we're so glad that you're here with us. I'm Stacy Spivey with Megan Milleris and Terrain Kirksey.
Got to talk about this forecast first and foremost. It is somewhat the basis for our talkers as we get into hurricane season. But first today, Terrain, starting out pretty nicely.
Yeah, not too bad at all. We have a mix of sun and clouds out there right now. I expect that to continue to be the case as we go through the rest of the day. Maybe an isolated sprinkle or light shower later on this afternoon, but that chance is fairly low, only around 20%. High temperatures in the mid-70s. It will be a little breezy from time to time. Tomorrow, I think we'll see a better chance of showers, maybe even a couple of thunderstorms later on in the afternoon on into the evening. For now, I have the high temperatures in the mid-70s, but if we get enough of a southerly breeze ahead of that front on Wednesday, we could make it up into the upper 70s, so we'll make some adjustments to that as necessary as we go through the day today. Cold front moves through Wednesday night. And then we have cooler and less humid air on the way for Thursday and Friday. Those are the 2 days to hold off from doing any type of yard work. That's what I'm going to do. If you have things to get done out in the yard this week, do it on those 2 days. It won't be quite as humid out there for you.
Yeah, well, that kind of leads us right into our first talker this morning. Scientists at Colorado State University are predicting an above-average hurricane season this year. Researchers expecting 17 major storms. They say that's 3 more than the average 14. There's also a chance for 4 named hurricanes at a Category 3 or higher. And so with last season, we're all kind of wondering what this means for this season. I think last year, it was considered pretty bad, right, Turan?
Yeah, it was one of the worst ones as far as the number of storms for sure. And I really also want to just make the point that we kind of talked about earlier this morning when we first ran this story. It only takes one in your neighborhood to be a problem. Just like if you have a severe weather day, you only have one tornado and it's in your neighborhood. Well, that's a big problem for you, obviously. So as we start to get closer to hurricane season, you need to be prepared. Even if we just have one storm that forms and makes landfall, it could be here in North Carolina. So we need to be prepared for that. There was a season in the early 90s. There was only one system that made landfall in the United States all season long, and that was Hurricane Andrew. And that did massive damage in the Miami area in South Florida, really in Homestead. It was kind of the main spot that system made landfall. So again, just be prepared and make sure you get your plans in place. I think a bigger deal also is just that the average number of hurricanes for an average season has gone up from 12 to 14. They do the averages on 30-year time frames, and so the new 30-year scale is from 1991 to 2020 now, and that has caused them to increase because over that time frame we've had more active hurricane seasons than we did in the 30 years prior. So, it's just one of those things. As we continue through time and the earth continues to warm up, probably we'll have more hurricanes.
Yeah, and I know there are several people on our feed who are not originally from North Carolina. Some of you Midwesterners relate to my experience. Growing up in the Midwest, the biggest threat is tornadoes, not hurricanes, which are a little easier to plan, but they cause widespread impacts beyond what you traditionally think when they come ashore. You have all the inland flooding, for example, like the flooding we saw at Hurricane Matthew. I remember being part of that crew that went to the Carolina coast, stationed at Oak Isle covering Hurricane Matthew. And then the storm hit. It had significantly weakened since decimating Haiti as a Category 5. It was, I believe, a 1 or weakening even more so when it reached North Carolina. But then it was all the flooding it brought to Fayetteville and some of the inland areas where people had evacuated from the coast thinking that they would be safe. We saw boats in neighborhoods that weren't even in flood zones, Turan. That is how devastating these impacts of hurricanes can be. So we have to all be prepared for the potential of what could come.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The scale that we use to rank hurricanes isn't that good when it comes to all of the impacts that hurricanes and tropical systems can bring. It's made exclusively for the wind speeds. Now there's some new ones that other people have started to develop, but it's not just the wind. Like you said, Megan, it's the rain and it's the slow progression of some of these systems, and the fact that you're going to have problems over a much larger area than you do when there's just a tornado in one part of town. You can easily bring in resources and fix things and get things back together. When there's a hurricane, you're talking about half the
immersed in until I moved here, because we just never had experienced it really back home in Arkansas. The only time I can remember being affected by one was Hurricane Katrina, because we got a lot of rain and then a lot of people came into our city. Had new students that were victims from Hurricane Katrina had come up to all the way to Arkansas to seek refuge from the storm. So that was the closest that I had been impacted by a hurricane. But now moving and living here, I see how dangerous they can be and how many people they can affect. Other people are kind of looking back on the worst storms that they've seen in their lifetime. And let's see, Gloria says it was Floyd for her. CJ says Hugo. Jessica says Matthew was bad for us. We had to leave our home. We lost so much. They were at Fort Bragg. And then Jason said he was 2 when Hugo hit. His mom she said that he had slept right through it and she had to go to work the next morning. They are dangerous storms. And Tarant, remind us again, when does this season officially start?
It starts June 1st.
Okay.
June 1st. But really the heart of the season is really, you know, August, September, October. That's kind of the heart of hurricane season. And you can have tropical systems outside of the season itself. You know, Mother Nature doesn't really care about what the calendar has to say. So, you know, we've had tropical systems out there in the middle of the ocean in December and January before. But for us, it's really August, September, October, and September is the peak statistically of hurricane season.
North Carolina seems to have a bad history of F-named storms. We had Fran, Floyd,
Florence.
Yes, Florence in 2018. I remember that one. We were on the air nonstop as that hit our coast. And I think that makes sense, though, Taran, because, you know, hurricanes go alphabetically. By the time you get to the Fs, you do start having some of these storms. The Atlantic is warm enough where they do reach the continental U.S.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You know, a lot of times the first couple, you know, they'll form out in the middle of the Atlantic. They might not do anything and dissipate, but as the season wears on, it's easier for them to maintain themselves for longer journeys. So yeah, by the time you start to get to, you know, DEF, you know, that's when you start to increase the chance of one hitting land. But again, going back to I think 1992, if my memory serves me right, Hurricane Andrew, that's the A, and that was the only one to make landfall that entire season, and it was devastating for South Florida. So, you know, again, the big takeaway from this is hurricanes can happen anytime it's possible, so you just need to be prepared. Go ahead and take the time now when the weather's fairly quiet and just get your hurricane kit together and just put it in the closet and don't worry about it until you need to use it. And that's all you have to do.
Florence and Michael were back-to-back in 2018. I remember we had focused so much on Florence when Michael was actually the bigger deal for the triad because of the amount of rain we got.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It was kind of an interesting situation. So Florence, absolutely devastating for the eastern half of the state. For us, we really just had 2 days where we had some rain. Michael was a weird system. It did direct us or impact us more directly with not only rainfall, but it was able to interact with kind of the jet stream and some weird things and cause widespread, very strong wind gusts and caused a lot of power outages. So again, that's all I tell you. You just have to be prepared for these systems and make sure you have that emergency kit. So something like that pops up, you'll have the food, the water, the supplies that you need to make it a few days until you can get some extra assistance from the outside world, if you want to think about it like that.
Yeah, and I know we need to get to our headlines, but it just made me think about how this year they've decided to do away with the Greek alphabet, naming the storm. So I think that would be interesting to see. You know, typically after you ran out of the list of names that they had in place for hurricanes for that season or tropical storms, that they'd go to the Greek alphabet. And Taran, they're not doing that this year.
Yeah, I think they're just going to go with another list of names, if I remember correctly. I have to make sure I'm correct on that. Yeah, you know, one of the big issues was, okay, we have all these Greek lettered systems, and some of them need to be retired, and they're being retired in a weird way where it's just like Alpha 2020. But you could have Alpha again the next year, and to prevent confusion, they decide just to do away with it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at some point if we just go to numbers and hyphenated with the year.
We're getting close to that point for sure.
Sadly.
All right, well, this has been an interesting conversation for sure. We do have to get to some breaking news in our headlines this morning. Right now, we are on top of this coming from the FDA. The agency now recommending a pause on administering the Johnson & Johnson single-dose COVID vaccine. Remember, this is one of only 3 vaccines approved by the FDA for emergency use. The FDA says there were 6 reports out of 6.8 million doses administered in the U.S. where a person got a rare and severe blood clot after getting the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Again, 6 and 6.8 million. So the FDA cites an abundance of caution in making this recommendation. Tomorrow, the CDC will consider it, and we are still waiting to see what it could mean for triad clinics offering the 1-dose shot. We'll keep you updated. Let's take a look at the North Carolina statistics here. More than 5 million people are at least partially vaccinated. More than 2 million are fully vaccinated. 218,690 single-dose J&J shots, and we've heard of only a few cases of severe reactions. 4 people were hospitalized in Raleigh recently, but treated and released last week, and the J&J clinics have continued since then. Most people in our state who received the J&J shot reported only minor side effects, similar to those of the other 2 vaccines, or none at all. Here locally, there are several places to get appointments for 2-dose vaccines coming up. The Forsyth County Health Department will once again offer walk-in vaccine shots today. People without appointments can get vaccinated while supplies last from noon to 4 at the Winston-Salem Fairgrounds. These are for Pfizer shots, so anyone 16 and up is eligible to get one. The Forsyth Health Department is opening up some time windows for walk-ins, but the best way to guarantee a shot when you want it is to book an appointment. There are still hundreds of open shots at the Fairgrounds and Haynes Mall sites this week. If you'd rather set up an appointment in Guilford County, there are appointments open as well. The county opened 8,000 more slots this week. You can book online or call. They will open appointment lines at 8 this morning, so in 40 seconds from now. The number is 336-641-7944.
The Guilford County School Board will meet tonight for the first time since deciding to send more students back to the classroom for full-time in-person learning. Starting next week, middle and high school students will learn in person 5 days a week. Today will be the first time the board or the superintendent is expected to talk publicly about the changes. A panel of 3 North Carolina judges began hearing the voter ID case yesterday. You'll remember in 2018, voters approved an amendment to the state constitution requiring a photo ID to vote, but the law to carry that out has been on hold because of lawsuits. Opponents of the law say it keeps black voters from the ballot box. Supporters say voter IDs are needed for secure elections. That trial could last for 2 weeks.
All right, here's the last look at your 7-day forecast. We'll see a mix of sun and clouds as we go through the day today. Maybe a sprinkle later on this afternoon. Most of us stay dry, breezy at times with highs in the mid-70s. Tomorrow highs will probably make it into the mid to upper 70s across the area. And we'll see a better chance of showers and maybe even a few thunderstorms during the afternoon hours. Even higher chance of rain after the sun goes down on Wednesday with a cold front sliding on through. Behind that front, Thursday, Friday, cooler and less humid with highs as it stands right now, probably dipping down into the mid to upper 60s. And then there's some question marks as to the rain chances as we go through the weekend into early next week. We'll continue to clarify that as we get a little bit closer to that point. That's the last look at your forecast.
Yeah, we know a lot of talk about all this vaccine information you just received, so we'll have much more on that on WFMY News 2 at noon. Working to get some questions answered about what the FDA's recommendation means for that federally supported clinic at the Four Seasons Mall, and if you have an appointment there. So hopefully new information will be forthcoming. We'll bring it to you when we get it.
Yeah, but other than that, looks like a really nice day. Look at the sky over downtown Greensboro. It's going to be so pretty, warmer. So get out and enjoy it. Thank you so much for watching After GMS. We do this every morning right here on the WFMY News 2 Facebook page at 7:45.
Get out there and get to it. Take care.